great to have you here on the Clark Howard Show. I hope you had a great weekend. You know, our mission is to serve you with advice and information that empowers you so you make better financial decisions in your life. And if you're subscribed to our free newsletter, I hope you enjoyed yesterday's Clark Smart Investor Edition. Comes out every Sunday. If you want to sign up, go to clark.com/newsletter or newsletters, either works. Today, I'm going to talk about the credit card rewards game. Who should play it and who should stay far, far away. Also, the new tax brackets are out. And I was so excited. What a loser I am. Anyway, I want to tell you how you use that to make a decision with money you're investing. If you should be in the Roth version of, let's say, a 401k, IRA, whatever, or you should be in traditional. I've got the exact dollars and cents for your choices you make for 26. So reward cards are where all the action is right now with the credit card companies. In fact, wow. Read an industry story recently that Delta Airlines makes virtually 100% of its profit, not from flying planes all over the world, but from the money they get from American Express, from people who are using the American Express Sky Miles credit cards. That Delta will get $10 billion that falls straight to profit this year, estimated, from the American Express Sky Miles. A lot of Americans are absolutely hooked on credit cards. So much, there was a headline I saw online recently. Okay, I'm going to read this headline. They each own 50 credit cards. Should you? 50. So what's going on is people who have a credit score generally above about 740, and people who show that they use extremely low credit card utilization, meaning of the credit cards they have, they're using a tiny amount of their available credit, are big targets for all the banks to try to get you to sign up for reward cards. And then the battle is to get you to use one particular reward card. So Chase is trying to get you to use one of theirs, American Express one of theirs, Citi one of theirs, blah, 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 blah. Because they make so much money from merchant fees, and the default and delinquency rates are teensy tiny if people meet those profiles. So they're luring you with sign-up bonuses of these many points, and then ongoing you get 4% for this kind of charge and 6% for that one and 1% for this and 2% for that and all that. And it's all this lure. It's like, have you ever been to the dog track and they're chasing the rabbit around the track? The rabbit is for you, oh man, I got those points. I'm going to go to fill in the blank, whatever the fantasy is. The funniest thing of all is that United and Delta in particular are flying routes that historically they wouldn't have flown, that are money losers for them, but just because they help so much getting people to sign up for their credit cards and charge to them. So when does it make sense? When does it not? Okay, cold hard fact. Most people who have, particularly because most of the reward action is not where most of us would benefit from it, which is no annual fee, straight cash back cards. But if you are a mega charger and a mega traveler, you are the target that these people are after. And that's how you end up with this headline of people who have 50 active credit cards or more right now, because they're playing this game. And there's all these websites and newsletters that all they do all day long is write about the bonuses that are available and the redemptions that are available and all that for mileage junkies. So you got to fit the profile, though. If you're going to pay a huge annual fee for a card, and what we're talking about is $900 for American Express, $800 for the Chase Sapphire Reserve, $600 for the Citi Strata, and $400 for the Capital One Venture X. I'm not even mentioning the monolines, the ones that are for American or United or Delta or Alaska or used to be an airline people were interested in having their card. It was a directional airline. What's it called? Southwest. That was the one. Anyway, that airline's lost in space right now under its private equity owners. It's funny how many people call them there's some really pejorative term people are using for Elliott right now who miss Southwest. I'm not going to use it here because I don't use language like that. But anyway, with any of these cards, you've got to have, beyond having them the first year to get the sign-up bonus and have the discipline to dump it after a year if you're not going to be honest with yourself. If you're not going to charge big volume on a card with big annual fees, it doesn't belong in your life. What's big volume? Do you know there are people charging on these cards tens of thousands of dollars a month, usually business owners who are running their business expenses through them. But a lot of people charge relatively small amounts of money per month on credit cards. Having a high annual fee reward card when you're having tiny charge volume makes no sense at all. And you really have to devote yourself to gamifying all this if you're going to be one of these people with dozens of cards. It's got to be like a part-time, not job, but I call it a hobby. And then you can be somebody who brags, yeah, I flew business class to Fiji for 40,000 points or whatever. I mean, because there are these wonderful things. I think I've mentioned points.aero. Have I mentioned that one? It's
yeah.
So what is it? Points.
Somebody wrote in about it one time. AERO.
And they were writing positively, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I've got it here. Anyway, you use these tools when you get all these points to figure out how best to do the redemptions. And the devaluation in points is a real thing. So you don't want to just let the points build up like they're Mount Everest. You want to harvest your points before each new devaluation occurs.
Or just do cash back, right?
That's right. Well, that's the point. Oh, that was a bad pun. That's the reality, is that probably 90% of people that are paying these annual fees on these points or mileage-based cards would actually more efficiently in their lives have a no annual fee, 2% cash back card. We've got a list of those on Clark.com. Use that all the time. And then you're going to have the cash back to pay for the travel you do when you travel, period.
All right. Nan in Texas says, I have a Southwest Airlines credit card.
Oh, that directional airline I was talking about?
The annual fee recently increased. I don't need the additional benefits this increase provides. How do I cancel my credit card, or do you advise keeping it due to its over 20-year credit history and replace it with a no annual fee cashback credit card? My only other credit cards are Amex and Capital One. I pay off all charges in full each month. My current credit score is 824. Thank you for all you do for me and my fellow listeners.
So, Nan, abandon ship like you're doing. Is Southwest is going to be like the show me state. It's going to be the show me airline because they botched up Southwest so much. I can't believe it. Anyway.
I mean, this is the biggest swing in Clark Howard history. You loved Southwest. You had the card. You loved it. And what did you just tell me you did with your card?
Done. I mean, they just, it's like, okay, so what the Elliott people do? So they wake up every day and they say, what can we do to alienate more people today? Because we didn't alienate everybody yet. It's just unbelievable. And maybe they'll find their way to making the airline successful again eventually. But wow, I feel so bad for the employees. I feel so badly for all those people at Southwest.
So you'd encourage Nan to follow what you've done.
Yeah. Oh, but I didn't answer the question. Can you tell him a little?
I know, you're like hurt by this whole thing. I mean, it's really been a journey for you, as they say. On The Bachelor.
Herb Kelleher is just, poor man. Anyway, so what you want to do is you want to hopscotch. You want to go ahead, and first of all, your 20-year plus history, that's there. You're fine. You dump the Southwest card after you've replaced it with one of the 2% cashback, no annual fee cards. And, who knows, when you call Chase to dump the Southwest card, they may make some kind of offer to you. Be all ears. Maybe they'll offer you something for another Chase card or that one that you're like, okay, I'll do that. So go ahead and get the bird in the hand, your replacement credit, and then you call Chase and see what kind of make a deal they're offering.
Lori in Texas says, do you have any tips on how to avoid data sharing without living under a rock? We've had the Wells Fargo Active Cash credit card for several years in order to get the 2% cash back, which annually is substantial for us. They just released their new online access agreement. Per usual, the big companies and their lawyers are collecting or will be collecting browsing history information and sharing it with third parties. I don't like this at all, but I don't feel I have a lot of better options since this is the trend for all of the companies to take what they want, and my only recourse is to try and find another credit card, which I'm confident will eventually do the same thing and take my information.
Oh, so you put this here for me that's in the Wells Fargo thing. We capture web browsing history and similar information, and then we may share that information with our third parties. Why? I mean, I get capturing information to make sure that your information hadn't been hacked into and a crook's not doing it. But to share with third parties, if it's for marketing purposes, that would be really uncool. Because of the unhappy history that Wells Fargo has had, can we check with them and see if there's specific purposes they're using this? Because we've recommended
that card,
this card. And so I want to make sure that they're using this information specifically, as they later say, to authenticate you, prevent fraud, enhance the security of your accounts. That's okay because of all the hacking and fraud that goes on. But if they're just using you as cannon fodder for data that they're selling off to third parties, that would not be okay.
We'll reach out. Helene in Maryland says, I read your tips on making sure one gets the full value of points for the Citi Double Cash card. Your article advised to redeem as a direct deposit to one's bank account or a statement credit. However, if one redeems as a statement credit and that amount pays for the entire next statement total or potentially putting me in a credit balance, wouldn't I lose the extra 1% because I wouldn't have anything to pay?
Yes, you would. And that would be terrible. And I hope we've never advised that. In fact, years ago, I hadn't paid enough attention to the details, and I used it as a statement credit. And did we hear from people in our audience who said, Clark, I can't believe you did that. And one person after another was like, remember, 1% when you charge, 1% when you pay. If you use a credit to pay your bill, you lose the second 1%. Yes, so that is absolutely right. I'll go scan our article to make sure we don't have a hiccup in there giving bad advice. Coming up ahead, I mentioned at the start of the podcast, the new tax brackets are in. The new tax brackets are in. And I'm the one person who would actually pay attention to that and be excited about it because I have screws loose. But I want to tell you how it affects you and decisions you make with your money for 26. Source of frustration for me over the years since the Roth version of a 401k became so common, somewhere around 90% of employers offer you the option, if you one of the half of Americans have access to an employer-provided retirement plan, roughly 90% now offer you can sign up for the traditional 401k or the Roth version of the 401k. And then, of course, you have the option of the Roth IRA. I never mention traditional IRAs, do I? I always talk Roth, Roth, Roth. Why is that? Because tax rates in the United States are historically extremely low. And there's overwhelming advantage for all but the highest income earners in the United States, if you have a workplace retirement plan, to go all in the Roth version of the 401k or its equivalent. So there are rare circumstances that people will pose to me as questions that I'm not even going to get into now. There would be an exception to the rules I'm about to state. But with the new tax brackets, it's pretty clear. In fact, it's not pretty clear. It's crystal clear that you got to be earning big bucks before you ever tilt from Roth back to traditional 401k. And overwhelmingly, almost everybody's putting all their money into traditional 401ks. They're not doing the Roth version. Don't know why. But if you're earning as a single individual, you're earning under $200,000 a year, which is most people, or a married couple, you have income below $400,000 a year, except in the rarest of circumstances, you need to, without any gray mixed in, this is completely a yes or no, you want your money all in the Roth version of the retirement plan offered at work. Period. No money in the traditional 401k. Period. Again, income limits. You're a single individual. You make less than $200,000 a year. You are all Roth. Married couples, under $400,000 a year, all Roth. Why? Because the tax brackets are crazy low and likely lower than what they're going to be in retirement. But there's more. For people who are big-time savers, you live on substantially less than what you make. Doing the Roth version effectively gets you saving approximately 30% more of your pay in the retirement plan that will never be taxed again when you do the Roth version versus the traditional. Even though the dollar amount limits are the same, effectively, because you're paying in with after-tax dollars, you're saving a much bigger chunk. You're living on much less of what you make and saving the rest to build financial security for yourself. And dare say, if you do this all through your working lifetime, you're able to retire when you want to, way ahead of the clock of when most people end up being able to retire. So what if you are making mega bucks. So in most cases, once you're hitting big money, which would be for an individual of more than, or really individual married couple, individual earning more than $500,000 a year, married couple $700,000 a year. In your case, doing the traditional still makes sense because you're in such a high tax bracket at that point. So to the 3 people listening or watching who are earning that kind of money, you want to be in the traditional. Everybody else pretty much is going to be in the Roth version if you're doing what's best for your finances long term. And again, there can be microscopic individual situations that what I'm saying would not be right. But in most cases, barring some extremely particular individual circumstances, those numbers hold.
Okay. Anthony in New Jersey.
Do I have a strong opinion about that?
Just slightly.
Just slightly.
Okay. You do call yourself the man from Roth. Anthony in New Jersey. I'm a new dad to a 7-month-old.
Congratulations. Get sleep soon.
I've started researching 529 plans on Clark.com. Am I correct in my understanding that if my daughter does not need the funds in the 529, fingers crossed for a full scholarship, she will only be able to roll over $35K into the Roth IRA? I see college, especially in 18 years, costing significantly more than $35K. So if I save, let's say $150K in the 529 plan, and my daughter gets a full scholarship, what would happen to the remaining $115K? Please help, as I was all set to go down the 529 route until I saw this rollover limit.
Okay, so first, this is why Congress passed the $35,000 that can be morphed tax-free from a child's 529 plan into their own Roth IRA. It's a fantastic thing, became a great safety valve, because a lot of people were afraid to put money into a into a 529 because they were worried their child may not go to college. But what we don't know yet, and you may not know yet, Anthony, is this the first of maybe plural children in your household? In that case, money that you wish not to go into the tax-free Roth if your child's scholarshiped out could be transferred to the benefit of another child tax-free and used for their education. But there's another bonus here. What happens if 529 money is not used for college? Well, if it's just builds up tax deferred over the years and then everything gets taxed, plus, unless you qualify for one of the exceptions, a 10% penalty. So it's ugly tax, because in order to get the tax-free benefit in a lot of states, an upfront tax credit for the 529, it's a carrot to get people saving for a kid's college. But then with the big stick that hits you really hard in the wallet, if they don't use the money for that and cash out, then it's got the tax and the penalties and all that. Except, an example, your kid qualifies for scholarship, and that's why they didn't use the money for college. Then there's still tax, but no penalty. So there's escape valves from taxation and escape valves from the penalty.
Jeff in Florida says, hi, Clark. I love the show and newsletter. I just finished listening to a prior podcast, and Gail from Indiana left me with a giant question mark. She didn't say what type of insurance she has, but she said what she paid at the doctor's bill and received another one months later. When I see a doctor or specialist, such as a dermatologist, I pay a set copayment and I'm off on my merry way. If it's just a normal skin check. Now, if he has to do any slashing or burning, then of course that's an extra charge. In that case, I'm expected to pay 20% of the billable charge. However, if the insurance company, due to agreed terms with the doctor, pays less, that's not on me. I already paid my 20% of the billable rate. If said doctor comes back for the difference that insurance paid, that's balance billing, and if I'm not mistaken, also illegal. Gail's story is a very good example to remind everyone to always not pay medical bills until you receive your explanation of benefits from the insurance company.
All right. So, Jeff, thank you for that post. And as with anything in medicine, there's some additional complications with balance billing. If you're seeing an in-network provider and they get into a fight with the insurer, you still only pay what you're supposed to pay is your portion of it. And if they short the doctor, that's where on your bill it'll say contractual or something. They remove that amount of money. They cannot balance bill you for it. On the other hand, the No Surprises Act applies in a case where certain circumstances, like an emergency room or a provider that you don't get to choose, like you don't get to decide, you may use a doctor in network, but then the anesthesiologist is not in network, you are not to be balance billed in those situations. But if you choose to go to an out-of-network provider, you could end up with a balance bill, except in a tiny handful of states that have additional layered protections on top of the federal law, generally referred to as the No Surprises Act.
Okay, and Steve in New York says you discussed cross-collateralization of banks whereby amounts from all accounts can be aggregated to satisfy withdrawals, including fraudulent ones via payment apps like Venmo, Cash App, and PayPal, but never used Big Bad Cell. You recommended opening a bank account at another secondary bank not associated with the primary bank and tie the payment apps to that new account. My question is about the method of moving funds to and from the secondary account. If I create an external link from the primary bank to the secondary bank, does that introduce a potential vulnerability to the primary bank's accounts if the secondary bank account gets hacked? In other words, can a bad actor follow the external link from the secondary bank and attack the primary accounts?
Not in any way I've ever heard of. And the only potential risk is if you set up automatic replenishment of your account at one institution when the balance reaches a certain low level, that it goes across and takes money from the outside financial institution. Don't ever do that. You want to manually replenish the funds in the account you use for Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. Never use Big Bad Cell. Or if you really want to use Big Bad Cell, you want to follow my rules of having a separate financial institution, separate all the guardrails around it. But automatic replenishment of funds from your primary bank to the secondary bank, that's where the real danger comes. And, I might as well go be Don Quixote and tilt at windmills, but it's absolutely insane. It's ridiculous that we don't have legal protections with debit cards and payment apps of the type that we have to protect consumers with credit cards. And it's just because these have come along in a different era, and we have a different culture in Congress now that they may say they care about regular people like you and me, but everything's done by campaign contributions, and their only loyalty, your individual member of Congress, your two senators, their loyalty is to one direction only, and that's to who gives the money. And that's why we don't have the kind of legal protections on things that came along in more modern times, like the piece of trash fake Visa and MasterCard, the debit card, and the payment apps. And
we'll get some Clark Stinks about that blanket statement.
I mean, it's just a fact. I mean, what's going on here is that the political culture of the country changed over time, and the the access to the politicians only goes to the moneyed interests. And that's something that I think you can see in polling Americans widely agree with. So
There may be a few who don't think that way.
So I'm looking forward to the Clark stakes.
I mean, a few senators or whoever that may not think that way.
Which would be great.
That would be great.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, Krista, here's what I want you to do.
Oh, God, no.
Okay, I want you to call up the offices of your two senators or your congressman and ask for a meeting with your congressman or either your two senators. When they finish laughing and then hang up the phone, you'll have the answer. On the other hand, if I'm some giant mega monster bank, or I'm, the cable monster or something like that, and I want a meeting with a congressman or either my senators, bam. You want to meet in 10 minutes or you want to meet tomorrow? I mean, really, that's what's wrong is the access is purchased in the political world now. And that's just my opinion.
Right.
I value yours, and it can be heard on Friday.
It is not a partisan opinion at all.
It's not partisan.
People will think that.
This is nonpartisan. This is how Washington works now. It's just the way it is. And that's said by somebody who is not naturally a cynic. I am a forever optimistic person. I am normally Pollyanna about most things. And so it's hard to say that, but it's how I feel. So anyway, enough negative energy. I just put negative energy into the universe. Is that what you say that is?
It's fine.
Apologize for that. And I hope you have a great, great day. It's all about you knowing how to deal with life's landmines. And that's what we do here. We provide you the knowledge so you can empower yourself to make better decisions so that you can save more, spend less, and don't ever let anybody rip you off. And I'll see you next time.